What if your social media strategy could do more than drive clicks? What if it could drive real, lasting change? Here's the good news: it can, and you can. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Misha Kouzeh, global consultant, TEDx speaker, and digital changemaker, to explore how purpose driven brands use social media to create measurable social impact and what we can learn from them. If you're ready to move beyond vanity metrics and into meaningful influence, this is your episode. I'll be right back. This is Strategy Talks.
Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Morin-van.
Hello, everybody. I'm super excited for this episode of Strategy Talks. I'm so glad you're here. If you're here live with us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, you know the drill. Let me know in the comments where you're joining us from. And if you watch this on the replay and you have questions, we'd love to know that as well. Both myself and my guests will be happy to answer your questions. Last but not least, thank you to all of those of you who listen to Strategy Talks as a podcast. We're very excited that you're part of our community, and we want to make sure you feel welcomed. So I'm going to pull up onto the stage with me my friend Misha. How are you today?
Thank you, Doreen. Thanks for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Good. I am very excited to talk about this. This is a new topic right here for Strategy Talks. We haven't really talked about it very much. Maybe one or two episodes that we dove a little bit in the side view of, doing social for good or on a mission, but nothing to this extent. So let's talk about it. You teach a course called Leveraging Social Media for Social Impact at University of Southern California. In your experience, what are the most underused social media levers, like features or tactics or formats, that purpose-driven brands often miss? And maybe why are they overlooked?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it because, as you know, social media can really be a force for good. So a lot of purpose-driven brands nowadays are looking at ways to engage their communities. So Meta historically has been very good at sort of building, groups and making sure it can enhance that community. But I think one of the most overlooked things that we keep hearing about, but we don't apply, is storytelling. So when you use data to talk about sustainability issues like you need to show, and the data shows what is going on. But the emotional storytelling piece connects the why. Why should we care about this? If this issue isn't affecting me or my loved ones or my community, and we say it's not happening in my backyard, why should I care? So purpose-driven brands have the opportunity to tell the story about those communities and those areas of our environment that are impacted. And I think one of the great ways you can do that is, for example, if you look at Instagram, they have ways that you can drive donations. So you can actually start using some of the built-in features of the social media platforms that exist to get donations. So this is a really straightforward way when people ask me, well, it's not just about brand awareness and we know organic reach is declining. What can we do to drive behavior? And to them, I say, let's start raising some funds. Let's talk about this on Instagram and see what we can do. And we'll talk about some other topics, I'm sure. But I think another thing I want to mention is influencer marketing. And I know you've had other guests that talk about influencer marketing, and there's so much to uncover there. But I think if you look at the micro influencers, the ones that have typically a lower follower count, but hyper engaged audiences, and they have the opportunity to talk and amplify and really, really get into the weeds and the conversations with folks that follow them. We're nowadays seeing the term greenfluencers pick up. Hasn't picked up as much, but the folks that are into sustainability and are influencers and want to drive the message. So lots of ways really for folks to start diving into that.
That's awesome. I'm very excited that, and I had not heard that term greenfluencers yet. So that's awesome. Authenticity and transparency come up repeatedly when you talk and on your podcast, especially around sustainability. How do you advise brands to audit or stress test their social media messaging for authenticity to avoid sliding into greenwashing, making sure that you've got things right?
That's a great question. So you're right. Everything starts with trust and credibility. And I think in the age of fake news and misinformation and disinformation, because there's a difference between those two, it's important to have the data ready. So I always say marketing experts and folks who are managing social medias are really the superheroes in the company because they work and communicate cross-departmentally. They need to know everything about the messaging. But to be candid, sustainability is pretty complex, and a lot of it is rooted in the operations department. So in order to build trust, you need to have the data. In order to have the data, you need different departments talking to each other. So I need folks in the marketing department to talk to folks in operations, to talk to HR, and all of these departments in the organization to make sure that they have accurate data. And they can talk about it. They can say, we did really reduce our water usage by 25% over the past year. And if you are a company that has an impact report, and I'm excited to see, for example, Patagonia just last week came out with their first ever progress report. Sometimes companies call it impact reports. They have all the milestones that they've accomplished beyond financial profit. So environmental milestones, social milestones, other things they've accomplished. How many people have they, if they are, for example, a nonprofit, in education, how many kids went to school because of their programs? How many animals were saved as, part of, their company? So really using sort of those impact metrics and communicating them and looping your social media folks in. Talk to them about why it is important. Talk to them about how they can engage community members online. And I think this is just such important work, but also an exciting way for us as social media professionals to learn more about areas that we may not know as much about, but because of our jobs and being communicators, we just learn so much more. So I think more than anything, it shouldn't feel like a burden. It should feel like new opportunity to learn something. And I know you, Doreen, are like me, a lifelong learner. You always love learning. You're very curious. You ask questions. And I think that's what we need in order to drive the eyeballs, but also clicks and actual change on social.
Yeah. So this is a side question that goes with what you just said. So if I'm listening to you, I'm a marketer, and I go, that's great. I'm getting pushback. I don't get the data from them. I don't get who should ideally own this social impact piece. Is it the marketer? Is it the C-suite? Is it somebody else in the company? Because as a marketer, sometimes I'm not saying we get pushed out, but we get walled up, like we're in our silo, you stay in your lane, we're doing this. How, if somebody feels that way, where should the conversation start and with whom? And how can somebody push for that transparency and that data sharing, because it's so important?
Yes, and that's such a legitimate concern because that does come up quite a bit. So for companies that are going through official certifications like a B Corp certification, which is provided by a nonprofit B Lab that does a rigorous assessment of your environmental and social performances, you may in your company already have someone who was in charge of doing those certifications. So whether that's someone housed in HR, or more of a corporate department, you can reach out to those people who were in charge of getting the certifications. They're usually also the experts. Sometimes companies bring in consultants as well. So I would start there, but I would also start by talking to people in the company who seem to be more in the know of sustainability initiatives, because a lot of companies sometimes have an unofficial green ambassador, sustainability ambassador, whatever you want to call it, someone who's sort of championing the efforts already without having an official title. And that's something we see in the sustainability world too. You don't have to be a sustainability expert to be working in sustainability or interested. So a lot of times you have colleagues who've been doing the green initiatives in the office and sort of championing that on a voluntary basis. So that's another way of going, looking at it and finding the right folks. But Doreen, I would say the third way, if all doors close and all roads lead to, you need to figure it out yourself, which I know we do quite a bit as social media folks, I would say interview your community, spotlight the people who are buying from you. So if you are a Patagonia and you want to raise more awareness about the Don't Buy This Jacket campaign, back in the day, it was an iconic campaign they did to sort of drive people to repair their jackets. And it was an anti-consumerism message. So obviously Patagonia is very interesting that way. But you could say, okay, we're going to reach out to customers who have purchased the product and have gone through the repair program, and we're going to spotlight them and highlight them. And I think we don't do that enough. I don't think we amplify the voices of our customers, our community. So whether you're for-profit or nonprofit, the things we're talking about today really apply to sort of any type of entity. The B Corp certification specifically is for-profits, but for-profits, however, you have the most valuable people in your community sitting right there on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, ready to engage with you. Why not tap into it?
Oh, I love that answer. I think that is wonderful. And yeah, sometimes we get pushback from that. We don't, like trying to interview a client or a potential client, there's things that go with that. But yeah, that raw story, the storytelling, highlighting the people that are actually part of your brand story, I think that is wonderful. Now, when you were talking about Patagonia, they're an Argentinian brand. Am I correct in that? So let's talk about the global impact of this. Both you and I are from the Netherlands, right? We both immigrated to the US. We're here, we're part of US society. So we see US companies, but it's different in Europe. It's different in Asia. Obviously, it's different in South America. So are there any cultural references or things that we need to be aware of when we work with a brand or for a brand, or we want to launch a campaign for social impact that we need to be aware of? What are some pitfalls, I guess, that we can that we should avoid?
Yeah, again, a great point you bring up, because a lot of times these are the things we need to consider. So as you mentioned, we're both from Europe. So we know sustainability a lot of times is very policy driven. There are a lot of rules and regulations. So naturally you can sort of follow those updates and go with the existing landscape of, we're reporting on this now, and these are the measures that are happening, and this agreement was signed, and so on. So it's more sort of top of mind. For the US, I would say it's important that the sustainability messaging is rooted in innovation and also strategy, because a lot of times if you frame sustainability or social impact as an innovation lever, as a sort of strategic advantage, you have a better chance of making it mutually beneficial for both parties. So it's really, really important to understand what your audiences are going to respond to. I think the typical message that would work in Europe about, yes, of course, we need to preserve the planet and preserve it for the next generations to come and plant trees, doesn't always jive well locally here in the States. So we need to talk about, okay, how is sustainability and social impact now driving innovation and AI and business growth? And what can it sort of give all the, not only the stakeholders, but the shareholders? Because as Patagonia says, our planet is our only stakeholder or shareholder, excuse me. So it's been very interesting. And then working in Asia, so I've had clients in South Korea, I have students from a lot of different Asian countries, and it's been very, very interesting to see. A lot of conversations I'm having with them are mostly rooted in community. Okay, so which other companies are doing what we're doing, and how are communities caring about this? And is this something that is a moral obligation or something that is legal? And if not, let's talk about why we should care about it, because some of the global giants aren't really doing anything with sustainability. So very, very interesting, sort of my bread and butter. I love the cross-cultural component and figuring out, okay, how can we bridge the gaps there? But I appreciate you pointing this out, because I think a lot of times we're not aware of how important it is to know the nuances of the different regions.
Right. One of the examples I want to use, and if you're watching this, listen to this. I usually fly to Europe once a year, and I fly on American Airlines, right? I have Delta points, or I'll do American Airlines or whatever, but I live closer to Boston now. So the last few years, I've also had access to European airlines that fly to Boston. So I go back and I booked a flight on Lufthansa and last year, and it allowed me to make a choice whether I wanted to add an extra $169, I think, to compensate for the I don't know what the exact word is.
CO2 emissions.
Yeah, the emissions. And I was like, why would I pay as an American, right? Because I'm American and Dutch. I was like, why would I pay an extra $169? If I was only an American, I would have been like probably taking a screenshot and sharing it all over social media going, what the heck? But as a European, I totally get it. This is what people do. They put their money and their actions where their mind is, that mindset of, we can do this. We come from a country where a lot of people don't have a car. They ride their bikes everywhere, right? It's important to them. And I grew up in a household with 5 children. We just had one car and we rode our bikes everywhere. And so knowing that and understanding and how we take care of the planet, then that goes through, that follows through in how businesses, nonprofits, for-profits present themselves to their audience. So I think that was a really good example that just happened to me recently, but I'm like, yeah, it really depends on where you live, because that seemed weird initially. And then I was like, wait, put your European hat on, and then, you get it. So I think that was a good example. So let's talk about AI tools, right? So we're talking about that, influencer simulation. What is the risk? You just said, social impact, we can use influencers, we can use clients, but now we've got AI who can fake all this stuff. What do we have to know? What should we be careful for? What should we not do?
Yeah, I love this because there's so much to unpack there. First and foremost, I will say I've had a lot of heated conversations with people who don't believe AI and sustainability and social impact should be in the same sentence. Ooh. So I would say I am someone who is challenging that, because my view is that if we can get more eyeballs, more awareness, and more interest in the causes, in the issues that are affecting our planet and our communities, I take that as a win. So a lot of people ask me, well, but how do we know their intentions are noble? How do we know someone authentically cares about the planet or is doing this because they want to drive a viral campaign and increase their follower count? And to them, I say, we never truly know what people's motivations are for creating content, and who am I to judge? All I'm saying is I want more people to be talking about things that are affecting our communities locally. I want more people to talk about youth experiencing housing instability, even in our own backyard. I'm based in LA. I want people to talk about the water crisis. I want people to talk about the nutrition issues we're facing, even with school kids. I want them to know about these things. So if we have, for example, an AI-powered influencer. So influencers that are completely generated by AI, digital avatars. We have a lot of them out there. One of the most well-known AI influencers called Lil Michaela. She, if we can call it she, has 2.3 million followers. She did an ad for BMW's EV model that came out a year or two ago. And her message was, we're bridging the past and the future. And, you know, with EV being sort of the new technology, it's very clear when you look at her social media feeds that she is an AI avatar. But there are nonprofits now that have started doing campaigns with her to raise funds, for example, for leukemia patients. When you ask me what shouldn't we do, there's obviously a lot of controversy around this. So Lil Michaela not being a real actual human, doing a campaign on, you know, suffering from a disease is really, really sort of morbid, unethical. We're seeing a lot of concerns with AI-powered influencers not having the human constraints so they can work 24/7. There is body inclusivity issues. There is all these ethical concerns we have. And I talk about that with my clients and my students and colleagues in the space. At the same time, I don't want to dismiss all the progress and all the technology and all the innovation we have available. And I don't want the social impact world to fall behind and yet again face what I call just a gap in awareness. We're not talking about some of the issues that affect humanity the most. So if you're on TikTok and you have your memes and your viral dances and you're enjoying that content, that's great. But you can use it to raise awareness for things that really truly affects humanity on a day-to-day basis. And I feel like I keep going back to that, but we live in an attention economy. You know this. We're all competing for attention.
Yep.
So if I can get a few seconds of someone's time and talk about this stuff that I think matters, and a lot of folks also feel it matters, but maybe don't feel they have the agency or the impact they want to have, which also I want to talk a little bit about, you know, you can start with your own social media feeds. We can all make a difference. We can all drive change, but we need to be realistic about how much we can accomplish. But all those little bits go very far.
Yeah, I love that you that you put yourself in the middle there and seeing both sides and having these discussions. I think that's great. I was going to ask about partnerships, and I guess an AI influencer is kind of a partnership. So are there partnership things that we need to think about when we're doing, you know, social strategies for social impact? Should there be a social impact policy in your company of who you would want to work with or who you do not want to work with? We've seen some examples in the last few years of backlash of, you know, companies working with a certain influencer, and then people go, whoa, no, we're not going to buy this anymore because you shook hands with that person. And, you know, we probably know who we're talking about, different people, and whether it's a makeup brand or, you know, a fitness brand, that's happened. And it doesn't necessarily, you know, for impact, those campaigns might not have been for social impact, but it would also happen if you hire the wrong person for the right job, right? So when we think about partnerships, what are some red flags potentially, and how far do we dig or do we go? And social impact policies, is that a thing?
Yeah, I would say you can make it a thing. There's a lot of SOPs and policies that you internally can create. I would say that it's not even specific to social impact, right? So when we talk about influencer marketing guidelines, I know companies have a lot of internal documents that sort of talk about the brand voice and what type of influencer or persona would be able to represent our brand, what are their values. So I know a lot of that vetting goes on automatically. I don't think personally you can ever avoid the risk of working with someone who potentially down the line may be subjected to cancel culture and may sort of also by affiliation drag your brand down with them, or vice versa. It's also happened that the brands face backlash and then the influencers are being canceled. And sometimes it happens both sides. So I feel that it's important to have internal alignment on, okay, what types of folks would be a good fit, or if it's AI powered influencers, what are their values, what do they stand for, what are their goals, what have they done in the past, what type of brands have they partnered up with in the past. Does this feel like greenwashing, where it's something that's not authentic and genuine and they're just trying to showcase their efforts as more sustainable than they are? Or is this someone who has been an advocate and sort of a digital activist in the space, who's always been partnering up with, Greenpeace and other organizations? So I think if you do the research and your due diligence, you can figure out, okay, this could be a good fit. And I always say, try and work with a roster of influencers, because sometimes you want to assess their performance, the situation. There's a lot of metrics at our disposal. Like, I love brand awareness, but I would also love for a partnership to be mutually beneficial in terms of the influencer driving traffic to my website. If the call to action is, check out our donation page, or check out our social media impact reports and share, I want to make sure that we're sort of driving that behavior. And if it's sales, and we have examples like Warby Parker and other companies that are sort of doing the 1-for-1 model, slightly different, because Warby Parker, in my opinion, perfected the Tom's shoes model, where instead of one, you buy one, they give a pair of shoes. Warby Parker said, we are going to do the 1-for-1, but instead of giving a pair away for free, we're going to give it to a nonprofit that then trains people to do the eyewear exam. So you're empowering the local entrepreneurs, building up the economy. So rather than giving the man a fish, you're teaching them to fish.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot of ways that you can sort of look at that partnership, and the influencers are one way of partnering up, but you can do public-private partnerships where for-profit, nonprofit pair up, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel, Doreen. I think you and I know how much work goes into creating these partnerships, social. So if you have a nonprofit that is doing awesome work, let them do what they're good at, you do what you're good at, and you join forces.
Yeah, I love that. I know we're almost at the end. I have a very quick question for you. We're almost at 2026. What are you excited about? Either a platform, a tool, or a format that's going to help move the companies that you work with or the students that you teach move forward in having more social impact? And this could be a very short answer if there's anything that you're excited about.
Yeah, I would say long form live content like you and I are producing right now on YouTube. It's something that AI can't replace. It's real, it's authentic, and historically and up to this day, YouTube is still one of the most effective social media platforms. So some other platforms come and go, very volatile, but YouTube is here to stay. It has measurable results, allows you to build trust and meet people virtually or hear from them before you even interact with them. So I would say slow but steady in a way wins the race. Let's stick to YouTube and all the things that it brings.
Perfect. How can people connect with you? What's the name of your podcast? And then we'll wrap it up.
Thank you. Yes. So LinkedIn is the best way to reach me, and I'll make sure to share that with you. And I know you and I are connected.
I'll put it in the show notes for sure. Yeah.
And my podcast is called Social Media for Social Impact. You can listen to it on all the major podcast platforms. And I'm excited to have comments and ideas and input. If there's any topics anyone wants to hear about, please shoot me a message. I'm always happy to connect.
All right. Well, we're going to finish this up. Thank you so much for being with us today. All of you. Misha, thank you for being my guest today. I'll be back next week with another episode of Strategy Talks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.